1976, a film crew working inside a California funhouse grabbed the arm of what they thought was a Halloween prop. The arm snapped off. Inside it was a real human bone. The prop, hanging from a noose, had been dead since 1911. That is a true story. And it is not even close to the strangest thing that happened in the American West. Hollywood gave you gunslingers and gold rushes. What history actually left behind is stranger, darker, and far more unsettling than any movie ever dared to show. Here are 10 of the most bizarre and unsettling true facts from the real Old West. Number 1. The body that toured America for 65 years. His name was Elmer McCurdy, and he was, by every measure, the worst outlaw in American history. In September 1911, he robbed a train and walked away with $46 and a jug of whiskey. 3 weeks later, lawmen cornered him in an Oklahoma hayloft. He refused to surrender. When the shooting stopped, McCurdy was dead at 31. Nobody came to claim the body. So the undertaker embalmed it with arsenic and propped McCurdy up in the funeral parlor, charging a nickel a look. From there, the corpse passed through carnivals, wax museums, and haunted houses for the next 6.5 decades. A 1933 exploitation film billed him as a dead dope fiend in theater lobbies. Most people assumed he was made of wax. On December 8, 1976, a crew member filming The $6 Million Man at a Long Beach amusement park grabbed the arm of a mannequin hanging from a noose in a funhouse. The arm broke off in his hand. Inside was a real human bone. Inside the mummy's dried mouth, investigators found a penny from 1924 and a ticket stub from a wax museum of crime. They poured concrete over his grave when they finally buried him to make sure Elmer McCurdy stayed put. Number 2. The outlaw whose skin became a pair of shoes. In 1881, an outlaw named George Parrott, known as Big Nose George, was lynched by a mob in Rawlins, Wyoming, after drunkenly bragging about killing 2 lawmen. The mob botched the hanging twice before he finally strangled to death, and left the body strung from a telegraph pole for hours. What came next was stranger than the lynching. A physician named John Osborne took possession of the corpse to study a criminal brain, found nothing unusual, and then had the skin stripped from the chest, thighs, and back. That skin was shipped to a Denver tannery and made into a pair of dress shoes and a medical bag. Osborne wore the shoes to his inaugural ball in 1893, the night he was sworn in as Wyoming's first Democratic governor. The top of Parrott's skull was given to a 15-year-old girl named Lillian Heath, Osborne's assistant, who later became Wyoming's first female doctor. She reportedly kept the skull cap for decades as an ashtray, a pen holder, and a doorstop. The shoes are still on display at the Carbon County Museum in Rawlins. Number 3. The U.S. Army unleashed feral camels on the West. In 1855, Jefferson Davis, then Secretary of War, quietly tucked $30,000 into a road repair bill and used the money to import camels from the Middle East. His reasoning was sound. Horses failed in desert heat, water was scarce, and a transcontinental railroad was still decades away. Camels could carry 600 pounds, travel 30 miles a day without water, and eat the scrub brush horses refused to touch. The Army imported 75 camels and stationed them at Camp Verde in Texas. 6 camels transported the same load as 2 6-mule wagon teams and beat them by 42 hours. An officer wrote simply, "I would rather have 1 camel than 4 mules." The soldiers hated them. The smell alone caused horses and mules to stampede. The Civil War ended the program in 1861, and when Confederate forces seized Camp Verde, dozens of camels were turned loose into the Texas desert. They went feral. They reproduced. They roamed the Southwest for decades, terrifying settlers who had never seen anything like them. A reddish camel in Arizona became the legend of the Red Ghost, said to have trampled a woman to death near Eagle Creek. When a rancher finally shot it, he found deep rope scars carved into its back. Something had been tied to it. What, and for how long, was never determined. Camel sightings in the American Southwest continued into the 1940s. Number 4. The dentist whose patient drilled him back. Clay Allison was one of the most feared gunfighters in the Southwest. In 1886, he sat down in a dentist's chair in Cheyenne, Wyoming, to have a painful molar extracted. The dentist drilled the wrong tooth. Allison held the dentist down in his own chair and pulled one of his teeth with the same instruments. He would have kept going, but the screaming brought people in from the street. His tombstone reads, "He never killed a man that did not need killing." Number 5. Community toothbrush. Across stagecoach stations in the frontier West, travelers encountered a single toothbrush on a string, available to anyone who needed it. Made from animal bristle, used by everyone who passed through before you, hanging there damp between uses. Barbers doubled as dentists, extracting teeth with plier-like instruments while the patient drank whiskey for the pain. Families bathed once a week, if fortunate, all in the same tub in the same order, then used that water to wash the dishes. Cowboys on cattle drives went months without a bath in the same sweat-soaked clothes, and the fungal infections that followed were considered an ordinary cost of the job. Native Americans, by nearly every account from the period, were repulsed by the smell of the settlers moving west across their land. Number 6. Wild Bill Hickok played cards dead. On August 2nd, 1876, James Butler Hickok, known as Wild Bill, was playing poker at Nuttall and Mann's Saloon in Deadwood, Dakota Territory. He was holding 2 black aces and 2 black eights when Jack McCall walked in and shot him in the back of the head. Hickok had reportedly tried 3 times that afternoon to swap seats so he could sit with his back to the wall. Nobody would trade with him. The black aces and black eights became widely known as the dead man's hand. Decades later, the 5th card was never confirmed. Nobody who was there agreed on what it was. Number 7. The outlaw who robbed the wrong train. In 1880, Jesse James received intelligence that a Missouri Pacific train would be carrying $100,000 in cash. His gang boarded it. The safe contained less than $1,000. James robbed trains and banks for nearly 16 years and died with almost nothing. When he was shot by one of his own gang in 1882, his widow had to sell virtually everything in the house to pay creditors. The valuables left behind by the most feared outlaw in America were a few weapons, some stolen jewelry, and a pocket watch. Number 8. Tombstone had more regulations than most cities. Tombstone, Arizona, had a city ordinance in 1880 requiring all firearms to be checked at the city limits. Visitors were expected to hand their weapons to the sheriff until they left. The Earp brothers and Doc Holliday were technically enforcing that ordinance when they confronted the Clanton gang near the OK Corral on October 26, 1881. The 30-second gunfight that killed 3 men was, in the legal sense, a law enforcement action. Both sides argued that in court for months. The Earps and Holliday were ultimately not indicted after a preliminary hearing. Most frontier towns had similar regulations. The lawless, gun-saturated west of Hollywood was a myth invented by dime novels sold back east, and later by cinema. Number 9. Wyatt Earp died in bed in Los Angeles in 1929. Wyatt Earp spent the last 30 years of his life in California. He prospected in Alaska, refereed boxing matches, and consulted on early Western films in Hollywood. He was friendly with Tom Mix and William S. Hart, 2 of the biggest silent Western stars of the era. He died on January 13, 1929, in a rented house in Los Angeles, aged 80. Tom Mix attended the funeral and reportedly wept at the graveside. The West he had actually lived in had been over for 40 years. Number 10. The frontier never announced its own ending. The United States Census Bureau declared the frontier officially closed in 1890. No ceremony, no last shot fired, No final cattle drive. Historians noted it in a report about population density. By then, many of the men who had defined the era were already performing in Wild West shows, reenacting a cleaned-up version of their lives for audiences back east. Buffalo Bill Cody had been touring his show for 7 years. Sitting Bull had performed in it. The smell of the real thing, those who were there said, was something no performance ever replicated. Horse sweat and wood smoke and alkali dust and unwashed wool, all of it baked under a sky so wide and indifferent you could feel small just standing still beneath it. That part never made it into the show.